The air inside the house felt thick that evening, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I had just turned off the stove and wiped my hands on a dish towel when I heard the soft creak of the floorboards behind me. I didn't have to turn around, I already knew it was him. "Need help with anything?" he asked, his voice a little too casual for someone who'd spent most of the last 3 months avoiding any real conversation. "Ethan. My 22-year-old stepson." He stood in the kitchen doorway, barefoot, a damp towel slung over his shoulder from the shower he'd just taken. His hair was still wet, clinging to his forehead in dark, heavy strands. I couldn't remember the last time we'd been alone together in the house. "No, I'm almost done," I replied, forcing a smile as I tossed the towel onto the counter. "But thanks." He didn't leave. Just leaned against the doorway watching me. It wasn't like how a kid looks at a parent. It was something else. For a moment, I busied myself rinsing off the chopping board, pretending not to feel his gaze. But when I turned to reach for the spice rack, I caught it again, his eyes on me lingering in a way that made my skin warm. I cleared my throat, tried to ignore the flicker of something too complicated to name. "You've been quiet lately," I said, trying to cut through the tension. "Everything okay?" He shrugged. "Yeah. Just thinking a lot." "About school?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. His eyes moved slowly down to my hands, then back up. "About everything." I swallowed hard. This wasn't the boy who used to ask me to check over his homework, or sit across from me at the breakfast table with sleepy eyes and cereal-stained shirts. That boy had grown into a man, and suddenly here we were, alone in the kitchen, both pretending we weren't feeling what we were clearly feeling. "I'm going to sit outside for a bit," I said quickly, grabbing my wine glass off the counter. "It's too stuffy in here." "Mind if I join you?" he asked before I could leave. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want him to, but because I did. And that scared me. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. We stepped out onto the back porch, the night wrapping around us like a velvet curtain. The air was still hot, clinging to our skin like an invitation we both tried to ignore. I sat on the wicker chair, pulling my knees up, and he leaned against the wooden railing, arms folded across his chest. We didn't say much. Just sat in the silence. And in that silence, something shifted. He glanced at me, then looked away quickly. Then looked again. "You're different when it's just us," he said finally. The wine glass paused halfway to my lips. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You seem softer. Realer." I laughed, but it was a weak, breathy sound. "That's just the wine." "No," he said quietly. "It's not." His eyes locked onto mine and I couldn't breathe for a moment. There was something in that stare. Curiosity, confusion, maybe even longing. A look I'd seen before, just never from him. "Ethan," I started, but the words died in my throat. "Sorry," he muttered, looking away. "I didn't mean." "No," I cut in. "It's okay. I think we should go back inside." But I didn't move. Neither did he. The distance between us felt like a thread pulled taut. One breath too deep, one glance too long, and it might snap. That's when it happened. His hand reached out, almost instinctively, brushing lightly against mine on the armrest. Just a graze. But it sent a ripple through my entire body. "I should go," he said, voice hoarse. "Okay," I whispered, not trusting myself to say more. But neither of us moved. And in that moment, quiet, dangerous, impossible, I knew something had changed between us. Something I couldn't name yet. But I felt it. And so did he. The following days tiptoed by with the kind of tension you feel in a stretched rubber band. Waiting until it snaps. Mark didn't bring it up. Neither did I. But it lingered. Everything lingered. The way his eyes met mine across the breakfast table. Longer than they should have. The way his hand grazed mine when we both reached for the same coffee mug. Neither of us pulling away fast enough. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was projecting. That maybe I was lonely or bored or looking for something that wasn't there. But one evening I came back from a walk around the neighborhood, cheeks flushed from the breeze and my chest aching with thoughts I couldn't sort. I kicked off my shoes and there he was, lounging on the couch shirtless, one arm flung over the backrest, his gaze flicking lazily toward the TV. Until he saw me. And then he looked. Not glanced. Not peeked. He looked like he saw something he hadn't before. I froze mid-step. My keys clinked in my hand. And neither of us moved. "Good walk?" he asked casually, but his voice cracked just slightly. I nodded, brushing past him toward the kitchen, but my pulse was thundering. I could feel his gaze trail behind me like a heat wave crawling up my spine. I poured myself a glass of wine. My hand was trembling. I hated that it was. When I turned, he was standing in the doorway, just watching. He didn't speak, just leaned against the frame, that unreadable expression on his face, somewhere between curious and bold. I was thinking about that movie you mentioned, he said finally, like we were having a normal conversation. Oh. I forced a lightness into my voice that didn't exist. Which one? His eyes didn't flinch. The one with the forbidden thing. The thing that wasn't supposed to happen, but did anyway. My breath caught. He was toying with me. Or maybe testing. Or maybe just saying what he didn't know how to say outright. I laughed too quickly. You mean the drama with the terrible ending? He smiled faintly. I liked the part before the end. I took a long sip of wine. Everyone likes the part before everything falls apart. And just like that, it was quiet again. Except the quiet wasn't safe anymore. It was laced with electricity and something else I didn't want to name. He didn't leave the doorway. I didn't tell him to. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw his. The way they lingered. The way they didn't look away when they should have. The way mine didn't either. I'd never crossed a line like this before. But maybe it wasn't a single step over some moral edge. Maybe it was a slow drift. And by the time you notice the boundary, it's already behind you. The next morning was hot. Stifling. I'd thrown on a thin robe after my shower, not thinking, just routine. My coffee brewed as I wiped sweat from my collarbone with the sleeve of my robe barely tied. I didn't hear him come in. Morning, Mark's voice startled me. It was close. Too close. I turned, and there he was, freshly out of bed, t-shirt clinging to his chest, eyes not quite on my face. I pulled the robe tighter. Morning, I said. He didn't move. Just leaned against the kitchen counter, watching the way steam curled up from my coffee like he wanted to step into it. There was something in the silence. A dare. He took a step forward. I didn't move. You've been quiet, he said, voice low. Like, avoiding me. I sipped my coffee slowly, trying to keep my hands from trembling. Just tired. Too hot to think. He nodded, but his gaze didn't soften. That night, on the couch, something changed. I swallowed. Hard. We can't. I know, he cut in. I know what this isn't. The silence snapped. But I also know I can't stop thinking about you, he whispered. I turned away. Mark. He stepped closer. I felt his breath against the back of my neck. I can't tell what scares me more, he said softly, what I feel when I look at you, or that maybe you feel it too. I spun around, heart pounding. Our faces were inches apart. His fingers brushed mine. I didn't pull away. I shouldn't be here, I said. Then tell me to go. I didn't. His hand came up slow, like asking permission. When his thumb traced the edge of my jaw, my breath hitched. Then I felt it, the gravity of the moment pulling us in. And when his lips touched mine, there was no hesitation left. Just heat. Hunger. Something raw and terrifying that neither of us wanted to name. When we broke apart, breathless, our foreheads touched. His hands were on my waist. Mine on his chest. 1,000 reasons not to do this ran through my mind. But in that moment, none of them were louder than the sound of his heartbeat beneath my palm. We didn't talk about it the next day. Not because it didn't mean something. But because we both knew, once we gave it words, there'd be no pretending anymore. And pretending, that was the last fragile piece holding the illusion of normal together. I tried to keep my distance. He didn't. Mark was everywhere. Helping with groceries. Hovering near the laundry room. Lingering in doorways with that same searching look, like he was waiting for me to crack again. And I almost did. More than once. But guilt is a cruel echo. It repeats even when no one else hears it. One night, when the house had gone still, I caught my reflection in the window above the sink. Just me and a ghost of the woman I used to be. Then I heard his footsteps behind me. I didn't turn. Can we talk? He said, voice barely above a whisper. I closed my eyes. We said we wouldn't. You never actually said anything, he replied. His honesty gutted me. Guess it was true. I hadn't said no. Not clearly. Not forcefully. Because some part of me didn't want to. I turned slowly and there he was again, standing like someone afraid to touch glass. Like one wrong move would shatter everything. "We crossed a line, Mark," I said. "I know," he answered. "But I've never felt something so real." I shook my head. "That doesn't make it right." He stepped closer. "Does it make it worthless, then?" I couldn't answer. Because every time I looked at him, my body remembered. His lips, his touch, the way he said my name like a prayer and a question. I should have ended it there. Instead I asked, "What do you want from me?" His answer wasn't immediate. He looked at me like I was something he'd dreamed and now wasn't sure he was allowed to touch again. "I want one night," he said. "No guilt. No promises. Just us. As we are." My breath caught. It was wrong. And I wanted it more than I wanted clarity or peace or forgiveness. So when I nodded just once, he stepped forward and kissed me again. Harder this time. Like he already knew it was the last time. We didn't speak. There were no declarations. No labels. Just tangled limbs, whispered gasps, hands learning skin like it had been written just for them. And when it was over, when the room was quiet again and his arm draped over me like a question, I whispered, "We end this tomorrow." He didn't argue. Didn't try to bargain. Just said, "Okay." In the morning he was gone before I woke. There was no note. No trace. Only the imprint of where he'd been, and the echo of everything that would never be spoken again. My husband came home that evening. Smiling. Oblivious. And I sat beside him, nodding along, pretending to care about the numbers he rattled off from his latest meeting. But inside I was somewhere else. Back in the quiet. Back in the dark. Mark.